geeking out loud while you sneak around. See, I'm the one they speaking about. This key blast to throw you in the air and spin your feet around. We geeking out loud. I put the cartridge in the system and I'm hitting everybody in existence. Came to get it all. You see the writing on the wall. If I'm Naruto in the water, then I'm Sasuke before the fall. Luffy after the hockey. I'm Zoro drinking the sake. Try to fight me, I get Brocky like we Spiros and Brawley. You gon' need the HMs, the TM. I said I'm trying to hit. She said ditto in the DM. She reach in, I'm preaching. Attack of the Titans. I went colossal on the weekend. Colossus with the X-Men. I'm Wolverine, I'm a weapon. I'm hotter than everybody. I dedicated the body. You hardly outside. We geeking, you never started.
Hey, what's up, geeks and nerds? This is Dr. Geekly here with Geeking Out Loud, where we talk about movies, games, comics, anime, all that good stuff in the geeky nerdy community. And today we are talking with a few special guests, very special guests today. I'll let them introduce themselves and their work.
Right now? Okay.
Hey, Doctor.
I'm Julia Leewald.
And I'm Eric Leewald.
And both of us have been doing what we're doing for about 30 years now. And what we do is write, gratefully, for TV and mostly animation. And we've done a few things we think some of you might have seen, specifically X-Men, the animated series from 92 to 97. And we are now happily with Larry Houston, who was a director and artist on the original series. The three of us are now consulting producers on the new X-Men 97 on Disney Plus. So it's been quite the run, quite the ride.
Right. You made nostalgia for X-Men fans all over. It's like, it's unbelievable. Like, y'all made the X-Men come to life before anything else. Like, so my first question is, what inspired the adaptation of some of the specific storylines? Like, how'd you bring them to life?
Okay, I'm going to let Eric, clarification. Yeah. I was a writer on the X-Men series. That's an important point. Eric here was what I call the showrunner. Every script went through his hands. He was in charge of picking out every story and assigning the writers to it.
So I've got insight to all the various ones we went to.
And interestingly enough, we'll talk about it, but it's great that you say, oh my God, adapting all these stories from X-Men. There wasn't a lot of direct adaptation. And I say that as someone who did directly adapt one of the stories. But I'm sorry, I'm jumping in. Yeah. I'll let you talk.
Yeah. It's what typical, but
don't go there.
We'll go there. But yeah, it's interesting when we were given this job, and it was real sudden. It happens out here a lot of times. You get an opportunity and say, well, you need to start, in 5 minutes, quick, meet all these people, and get going on this. When we set up what kind of stories we're going to tell for the X-Men show. There were 30 years worth of comics, 25 years of current ones, and 5 years of reissues. So basically 20, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of stories that have been done in the comics, and 29 different people that had been X-Men during those 30 years. And so there was a big question, what story should we pick? Because our first responsibility was to make a good TV show. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of a challenge. I mean, if you try to do either one or both, I don't know if I could write a good comic book. It's a different craft. They're all just the stories come out a little differently. So we weren't looking so much to adapt individual issues of this or individual stories from the books. We were looking to them as a reference. Like if someone said, well, can you come up with a Sherlock Holmes series? Well, we wouldn't just necessarily translate the stories, the 20 stories that have been written
for Sherlock Holmes.
We would use those characters in that world and that tone and come up with our own fresh stories. And that's tended to be what we did in the TV show. We would look to the characters, make sure we got the characters right, and make sure Wolverine was still Wolverine. Mm-hmm. But we didn't look to say, well, because to be honest, it's an admission that I've made many times. The day I got the job, I'd never picked up an X-Men book. I didn't have any favorite issue to adapt. Mm-hmm. I just was shown this history it was before the internet, so I couldn't just go on and Google who all these people were. Mm-hmm. We had to get old comics, and then there's certain, like Marvel had reference books to say like who the characters were and what their relationships were to each other. So I kind of look back on the stories that had been told as a basis, and then we would come up with, say, well, what's the coolest rogue story we could tell? And we thought, well, maybe she feels so bad about she can't touch people, she thinks about giving up her powers. Well, that was an original story of ours. I mean, it's but when we started writing that two-parter, we looked back and said, well, are there villains we could use that have confronted her in some of the books? Are there places that she could go that, you know, were part of the books, make the fans feel like that we were part of that world? So the 9 out of 10 of the stories that we told over the 5 years started out that way. What's a really cool story for Wolverine? What's a really cool story for Xavier? And then we would use that. Then we would touch base with what had been written before and use what we could. And if we couldn't find anything, we'd make up fresh. But there was a real balance in the creative team. There were probably half the team, mostly the artists, knew the comic books by heart. So there are a lot of little details in the show that really refer specifically to the comic books. But a lot of the writers didn't really know the books that well, so they didn't really have an agenda of say favorites that they wanted to tell. They just thought, oh God, I love this Wolverine character. I'm going to sit down. You know, I want to tell a story through him, and that's where the inspiration for that writer started. And then we would find some details in the books that we could fit with that writer's inspiration.
Right. Okay. I'll let you know one of my favorite things y'all did in the X-Men series, and I don't know if you remember this, is when y'all made Wolverine cry when he fought that one mutant. That was the kid that possessed him. Proteus. He was an abused son of that nasty politician over there in Great Britain. It's just you try to look for special moments for people, and you know Wolverine has this kind of normal way of being, and you know him as being so strong and so heroic and so able to just be fearless. And so if you show something like that, you say, oh my God, how terrible it must be, how powerful that boy must be, that he should make that person cry. If he made Jubilee cry, it wouldn't have been as big a deal. Right.
So you pick your people and you make drama out of them. And the nice thing about doing a TV series is that you get to know these people over 50 or 60 or 70 or 100 stories. And that makes those moments, like with Proteus that you're talking about, all the stronger, because you really feel like you know who Wolverine is. And boy, it must be tough what Proteus is doing to him to make him cry. Also, we were making a kids show supposedly for a Saturday morning on Fox, and there's a real limit to the violence we could ever show at one person doing to another. So we tried to keep the excitement and the drama going in the episodes. We'd look for moments like that where they were very dramatic and very intense, but they'd be internal. Like that's something going on inside Wolverine. Someone isn't really physically tearing him apart, but someone's getting to his head so strong that it's making him cry. And so we would purposefully try to find things like that we could do that were dramatic, that weren't like cutting somebody up and making them bleed, So with things we just absolutely couldn't do on a children's show.
Yeah, it's and how did y'all adapt the Morph arc? Like, how did that start up?
Funny you should ask. Okay. Going way back, 1992, Fox Broadcast had just entered the big market with ABC, CBS, and NBC to become a fourth network. And that was a huge deal back then. There were no other successful fourth networks at that time in U.S. broadcast. Fox was going to give it a shot. And they established their Fox Kids for Saturday morning, which was a distant fourth behind the ABC Saturday morning or NBC or CBS.
Yes, maybe 4 or 5% of the audience out of 100.
But and here we're going to sing the praises of the woman who became president of Fox Kids, a woman named Margaret Lash, and her right-hand executive guy at Fox Kids, Sidney Iwaner. And they were determined to swing for the fences and take chances that the other networks weren't taking in order to get noticed, just for kids to even be aware that there was a fourth network. Margaret had worked with Stanley at Marvel Productions here in Los Angeles, and they had success producing other people's shows, like they would produce Muppet Babies. But she had gone to the other 3 networks when she was at Marvel and had tried to sell an X-Men series, couldn't give it away. When she became president of Fox Kids, she said, one of her marching orders to everybody, I'm going to make an X-Men series. It's going to happen. And with that, she understood, she knew who the X-Men were. She understood the depth of the storytelling. And together with Avery Coburn, who was the broadcast standards and practices person at Fox Kids, a woman who also understood the X-Men characters and what the stories were. This is a mature theme. These are adult stories. They have a lot of emotional attachment. You and your head writer, Mark Edens, enter the picture. And it's like, okay, we got a team. We only had 13 episodes too. There were Margaret Loesch's boss at the Fox network did not think it was going to work. And he said, are you willing to bet your job on the success of the X-Men series? I will give you 13 episodes. When it crashes, because it's going to crash and burn, you're no longer president. Is that a deal? And she staked her job on it. She took that bet. She said, I am so confident in this project. The point is, you two sat down and said, how do we establish the stakes in a series like X-Men, so it's not just 2 mutants fighting each other each week and someone wins and someone loses? How do you make the stakes authentic? How do you prove that things matter in this show? And you and Eric, you and Mark, both big students of mythology, the hero's journey, all these kinds of stories and what sacrifice means. And you two decided
that we needed to kill Morph in the first story. And so that kind of freaked
me out. Yeah. Sorry, we got a dog in here.
Our German Shepherds joined us here. Anyway, so and she's then their network's never gonna let you do that. I mean, they have real strict limits about even. I mean, there's nobody ever hit someone in the face in our show. I mean, and there's almost never been any blood. I mean, forget about killing. So there's no, they'll get it. And it took a couple weeks, but we talked. Some of the people in the network got that immediately. Okay, this is crucial. And the censor lady, who of course this is her first big story that she's thrown from us, is you really want to kill one of the lead characters in the first? Yeah, we got to do it. And she understood why. Mm-hmm. And she gave us limits. It needs to be off camera. It needs to be this.
Can't be blood. Can't be gratuitous. We can't see it.
We had a good relationship with her, so we were able to go negotiate, go back and forth, and say, no, it's all about the people behind the family that's grieving over him. It's not over watching him die for 15 minutes on some torture porn movie. I mean, it's about what his heroic sacrifice means to his X-Men family. And so she got it. She let us do it. And it was a big deal. And it was a hard-won deal. And it was meant to stay that he's meant to be dead.
And we
honestly, it was not a comic book or soap opera death.
It was only 13 episodes.
Supposed to be dead.
Only 13 episodes. And poor Ron Rubin, the voice actor.
The poor actor. He's looking and says, all of his friends are going to get 13 episodes of work. He looks, what do you mean I get shot in this? I get killed in this second episode. What? That's 2 checks. Everybody else got. So he was not pleased.
But then X-Men was a hit. Yay. And the 13 episodes rolled out. And then we were all let go at the end of the
honest God, we were 3 months out of work after we did the first season because they were not at all sure they were going to do any more episodes. And then it suddenly became this huge hit, and they're calling us back. And they said, oh, and there's one other thing.
Oh, yeah, big deal. We had one more season. Yay.
Yeah. We've shown 5 episodes by now. And so we had a bunch of 9-year-olds come in, and we had a focus group with them.
Focus group.
And we asked them a few questions, and one of them was, who's your favorite X-Men character in the first 4 or 5 stories? Oh, Morph won by a landslide. So, okay, we killed off this guy that the kid fans just love to death. And so we get the call from the network saying, look, guys, I know you spent a month talking us into being able to kill this guy, But it turns out that the fans love him. Is there any way you can bring him back? So that was not a happy day. But we ended up having really good stories, bringing damaged Morph back, and that it kind of balanced it. But just for the record, for the history, he was meant to stay dead.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. When I first seen Morph come back, it blew my mind as well, because he gave Wolverine kind of like PTSD in a way. He's like, Morph, that you?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no. It made for really.
It made for good stories. So that was the upside of that, for sure.
Right, but just so you know, he wasn't supposed to come back. That is just. but again, his heroic sacrifice, the response, the care you and Mark put in the the opening two-parter. You see Morph interact with everyone on the team, and you see every one of them react and respond to him in a very positive,
and to like him. So he's all this affection coming in, and that's the person we kill.
Yeah.
So that's their storytelling 101 is if you're going to sacrifice somebody, have it be somebody that everybody cares about.
And then also, and again, Avery Coburn gets credit for this one when they make it back in the jet. And they're getting off the jet, and Cyclops, I know you don't understand Wolverine, as Wolverine is coming off the jet. Yeah. And he just, with claws retracted, Wolverine comes on and just punches Cyclops in the gut and says, it has that line about, next time I use these. He was just so furious with Cyclops for leaving a man behind. Furious.
Yeah, and grieving. And so that was a nice thing about our censor, this wonderful lady. Her first note was the natural note of a kid censor. You can't show Wolverine hitting Cyclops. You just can't do it.
Right.
And I just said, no, look, you understand, he's grieving so hard for this guy that we need something dramatic from him. And she said, okay, you get it this one time. And you can look at 76 episodes, no X-Men ever hits another X-Men. I don't think they even hit bad guys like that. They
take out the Sentinels, but they don't hit bad guys.
She understood. She understood because Wolverine was grieving hard in that scene for Morph that she let it go that one time.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I remember one of my favorite things was the cameos from it, and for instance, Spider-Man being in it, Rogue and Captain Marvel, all that.
Well, I want to give credit. Larry Houston has a great backstory on this because he was on the art side of it. Also, just to set the stage, back in '92, there was no official cool studio writer's room. You and Mark were at our dining room table. That was it. We didn't have, but the artists didn't have a fancy, art room, but they were all together at Graw Studios, churning out character models and designs and stuff.
And most of them knew and loved all the Marvel comic books. So they wanted to put all these characters in, but we didn't have the legal right to.
So Larry tried with a Spider-Man character very early on and in the storyboards, and it got bounced back by lawyers saying we can't have Spider-Man in this.
Sony has the rights to Spider-Man. These other people have the rights to Captain America. Back then, Marvel was a little company that was about to go bankrupt in 1996. And they had sold off the rights to lots of their characters to different companies. So when we were doing the X-Men show, we just had the rights to do people from the X-Men universe. None of the Avengers, none of all these other characters. So every time you saw one of those people in the show, that was Larry sneaking them in, and he had figured out, just don't name them.
Call it Mutant 1, Mutant 2,
Call them Mutant 1, Mutant 2. Call up Norseman. Yeah. Call them, if it's Thor, don't call him Thor. And he was able to draw them and draw them to character.
And they were black and white on the
storyboards. We had draw black and white sketches.
Art,
so these all got okayed by the attorneys because there were no red flags raised because he never named any of those people. They just appeared in the background somewhere, in someone's nightmare or in someone's vision or something. And so it made fun for the fans and made fun for Larry. And it didn't get in the way of our stories because, we didn't write in, make sure that, Spider-Man's hand is seen up in this corner over here. Larry did that just for fun. It wasn't part of the script.
And Larry being big fan who grew up on the Marvel books. He said one of the things he loved was you're reading a Spider-Man book, and in the background you see Thor swinging by with a little asterisk saying, "Want to see what Thor's up to? Then get this issue and see what's happening there." He loved those in the comic books.
Yeah.
So then for him, that was his way of sort of recreating that, having cameos show up. And if you weren't a fan of the books, it didn't distract you. But if you were a fan, it's like, "Oh my God, did you see?
Yeah.
That kind of fun."
Yeah, like I'm one of my favorite ones that we didn't see much of, but I really much appreciated was when morphed into Deadpool.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like he for that split second, I was like one of those Leonardo DiCaprio pictures, just looking at the screen, just pointing at the TV. I was like, "Oh my God, that was Deadpool! Like, I know that was." And it was.
Yeah. And Deadpool had just.
The comic had just started that year.
Yeah, and so
that was a new person that he threw in there.
And you spoke with the folks we were in Los Angeles. Marvel Comics was in New York, and you were the point person on the writing side talking to the folks in New York.
Yeah.
And Deadpool was a new character.
Yeah, they handed me a couple comics, number one issues. Yeah, check this guy out. We think we got somebody fun here. We don't know because they never know if a new comic could be successful or not.
Right.
And so Larry saw it, said, "Hey, this is a nice design," and so he popped him right in.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like this, y'all. And here's the thing: everyone has their own character development in the show. Like individual, for instance, Beast, with that Beauty and the Beast episode.
She wrote it.
No, I came up with the idea, and our good friend Stephanie Matheson wrote the script. True. But that was. But
it was her idea.
Yeah. No, but thank you for that. That story.
That was Beast's character development. It made me feel so bad for Beast because I thought he was the most positive person on the team. He was always just saying different things poetic wise. He was always the uplifting guy in the group, even though he's a furball and he looked the most mutated out of all of them. He can't find love.
No, that was exactly it. And what you said is you forget. Wolverine can walk down the street. He's short, but no one's going to point and say there's a mutant. Poor Beast.
He couldn't pass
at all, anywhere, ever.
And yet he had worked.
He had a trench coat.
He had worked himself just through the strength of his character to become at ease with that. Yeah. And he said, "Okay, I'm comfortable with this in my skin." And yet meeting this girl, Scott broke through all that.
We're gonna get choked up here.
Yeah.
And that is the one episode, I think, because going back and looking at it again, books are holy, not in the Bible, but books are a very special thing to Beast. He adores literature, he adores books.
Right.
And in that episode, the artist just did a killer job where he's going through a scrapbook by himself, and you see pictures of him as a little baby, and he's smiling, and then he gets a little bit bigger.
It's his parents' picture book of him growing up, and it stops at adolescence when his mutancy starts to show. And they stop taking pictures of him, and
it's just heartbreaking. And then he closes the book and he throws it at a mirror to break it, and it's that's the one time you see him treat a book badly, and it's oh my God, he's in such pain.
Right, and also for another character development was Rogue, only because of Captain Marvel.
Yeah,
or Miss Marvel.
Ms. Marvel, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, that was an important story to tell, how she got her powers, and again, I don't mean a bit of a cheat, but the fact that for some reason for Rogue, having had that contact with Ms. Marvel, she now has Ms. Marvel's abilities.
Right.
And poor Ms. Marvel is stuck in a hospital bed somewhere. And her mother Mystique made her do it. It's just these layers of awfulness right there.
And y'all also adapted so much character development into my favorite villain, Apocalypse.
Oh, he's wonderful. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned it because he's a favorite to write of one of our dearest friends who's recently passed. There were two brothers that wrote on about half the episodes that we did. Mark and Michael Edens, friends of mine from college, University of Tennessee, so not far from you in Knoxville.
Okay.
And we just all loved doing Apocalypse because he was different. he was larger than life in a way, even more larger than life in a way that was different from the mutants. And just that voice, that incredible voice that we rode up to. And Julia's got a little bit of a history here. Something we didn't know. When we were little,
each of us, I was in Texas.
We were big Star Trek fans.
Original Star Trek series.
Back. And we discovered
this actor,
whose name's John Colicos. He was our voice of Apocalypse. That incredible voice that nobody else sounded like. He was also the very first Klingon
to appear in a Star Trek episode.
In the first season of Star Trek, towards the end of the first season, this Commander Core comes in, and it's this Canadian actor named John Colicos. We didn't know.
We didn't know.
We weren't there at the recording session, so we didn't.
That was in Canada. We
didn't meet the guy that did the voices on 17 episodes as Apocalypse, and then to discover that he was the very first Klingon in Star Trek. It blew our fan minds.
It did.
Our geek boy,
and geek girl,
just souls just exploded when we discovered there's that connection. But Apocalypse is just, he has a presence, and I don't think they captured it very well in the movies. No. He's larger than life in a way that the actor in the movie was a wonderful actor, but he's 5'10".
Hey, Oscar Isaac, I will never argue.
He just didn't have, there was a size and a resonance and it's like he filled up cathedrals with his presence, and that was cool. That was different, and he had his own. He was most of the other villains had specific, very human things going on. He was this almost timeless creature that was just trying to figure out where he fit in the universe in the scheme of things. And sometimes that meant leveling worlds, and sometimes that meant being confused and bothered. So we loved writing for him.
Like, Apocalypse is basically the Thanos of the X-Men. Like, that's basically how he is. Like, like y'all say, he's larger than life. We don't know how many powers he has because he's been reincarnated so many times.
Right. Hold on. You keep going.
Oh, yeah. We have to shut the door on the dogs here. Pardon us.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. No. Yeah. So Apocalypse, just a great villain. And again, just hearing those words come out of it, just, yeah.
And we love And I was going to say, we love the fact that they're using him also in the X-Men 97. He's part of some of their larger, more spectacular stories in X-Men 97.
Right. I mean, and the fact that they put Gambit, so much character development in Gambit in the 97 arc.
Yeah.
But no, it's like, what was your favorite? This brings it up. Then, what was your favorite things of writing in the animated series of like your favorite character development and arcs?
Oh, well, I'm gonna it would be just the idea of Beauty and the Beast was really rewarding. Now I got to write in the first 13 because again, the series, you had 13 episodes. That was season 1. We didn't know if it would go.
Right.
You got a second season that was also 13 episodes. Didn't know if it was sustained beyond that. Then you got the episode order for seasons 3 through 5. So that was a block of time when
they picked up 39 at once. They realized this is so successful. We got to commit, to that many, and that was great because it's our day job, and if you don't know from month to month whether it's going to be continuing, it's not so great. But when they say we're going to commit to 39 more, that gives you a year and a half of comfort that way.
So in the first 13, I got to write part 1 of what became Days of Future Past, which it introduced the character Bishop and time travel and Forge and all that fun stuff. But and that's one of the most important books that Marvel put out for the X-Men, written by the great Chris Claremont. And it's like, okay, Julia, okay, we got this. There's a story. It's called Days of Future Past. Here are the highlights. Kitty Pryde, she sends her mind back, and she interacts with people to try and stop this horrible thing from happening. But you can't use Kitty Pryde and you can't actually send her back in her brain. You have to send someone back. It's like, wait, what? Like, huh? So rethinking that stuff was actually a lot of fun. Is the right word. It was fun thinking of that.
It was a nice challenge.
Yeah.
And we didn't, luckily, at the time, we weren't quite aware of what a big deal that was, for the fans of the book. I mean, we were just trying to get the first season complete and have it make sense and have it play okay. And by the time it came out, we were happy with it, and Marvel was real happy with it. That was great. We look back with relief because that's one of the 2 or 3 biggest stories in the history of the books, and we didn't screw it up. We had to change it for TV, but that's okay. We even talked to Chris Claremont about it.
I got to meet him years later, and he was very gracious.
Yeah. So they got that. There's so many different things. Do
I brag on you?
What?
One man's worth?
Yeah, we'll
get to that.
We'll get to that. The one that was most fun and satisfying for me was the Phoenix Saga, the first one, the 5-parter, because there's a challenge of making a 5-part story, which is 120 minutes of story, and having 5 distinct stories that fit in together. But the cool part was, up until that point, the first 30 episodes, we've been just writing as fast as we could. I'd be hiring writers to write, and I'd be getting the scripts in, and I'd be polishing them up and be handing them off and getting notes for everybody. And it was just a frenzied, nonstop thing where we didn't have time to catch our breath. And at this point, just before we committed to doing the season that's almost started with the Phoenix Saga, we had a little couple-month break there. And I asked Marvel and Fox, everybody, could I have a little longer on this, a little more time, so I could just get my 2 buddies, Mark and Michael Edens, and just the 3 of us sit down and write these 5 things together, so that it really is just this one. Because on other, like say Dark Phoenix, there must be, for those 4 episodes, I bet there's 6 different writers, like 2 here, 2 here, 2, 3 that wrote it with me, and it just was who's ever free that week.
And they did a fine job.
They did an excellent job. But to be able to sit down with my buddies of 20 years that I'd written all sorts of things with, and just do that long story all together, and have an extra few weeks to do it, and not have 17 other things going. So that was probably the most satisfying one. But as Julia will tell you, the one that the hardest thing for me running the show wasn't the writing of the scripts, because we had all these good people like Julia that I knew would craft a good script once we decided what the basic story was. The hardest part was, out of the thousands of X-Men stories we could tell, what are the few dozen that are the most intense or the most important, or the ones we want to tell? What makes them special? And so each year we had another 13, 15 stories we need to tell. And so deciding on which ones to tell was the hardest part. Coming up with the ones was the hardest part. And so one night here at the house, he just hit me. He says, wait a minute. This is a perfect X-Men story. And it was one man's worth. It was what would happen if someone went back in time and killed Xavier? There'd be no X-Men. The world would be different. And it would be a way of showing how important the X-Men are to the world, because this is what would happen in a timeline where they didn't exist because someone got the Xavier. That was a whole lot different story. It took months, to build it up with a wonderful writer named Richard Mueller, and we got it going. But if you've seen It's a Wonderful Life with Jimmy Stewart, if you've seen a Star Trek episode called City on the Edge of Forever, each one of those, the turning point in the story is someone looking at a main character and say, this is what the world would be like if you hadn't existed. Because in the movie, Jimmy Stewart movie, he despairs. He's about to commit suicide.
Yeah.
This is not a happy Christmas movie. It was done in the 1940s. He's on the bridge ready to jump, and an angel comes and says, no, you don't understand. You haven't led an empty life. Look at what you're like. Look at what the world would be like if you hadn't come along.
Right.
And that was really affecting. So we said, let's do this with Xavier. And it just was, it's one of those moments where we said, Oh, this is great. I Eureka. For months and months, I work out a little story here, a little story here. This one just came to me like that. And it ended up being wonderful. And as Julie will tell you, it built into something. Marvel loved it so much, they decided they're going to do some books up kind of based on the same idea.
Mhm.
And that became Age of Apocalypse.
So the X-Men series, the animated show, One Man's Worth, is what inspired Age of Apocalypse. That became this big event for Marvel, which is wonderful. The catch is that animation for TV takes quite a while, and time travel stories are real tricky, and everybody weighs in. And that particular two-parter took longer than usual. So by the time
The TV show came out, they were already working on Age of Apocalypse.
So if you go back and watch the episodes, there are a lot of 1,000 cameos are flying by, but those are designed based on those
for
are
us
from
to fit in with them. And so fans had always thought, oh, they based that nice good episode two-parter on Age of Apocalypse, but it was the other way.
Yeah,
because a lot of stuff, obviously, we based on their books, and we so how nice it was to be able to give something back to them, so that they could base a series of books on a story that we'd come up with.
you'd come up with, but
yeah.
Okay, yeah, it's like X-Men have been a big part of my geeky nerdiness growing up. Like, I loved Age of Apocalypse storyline. I loved the Onslaught storyline. I love all of that, and y'all brought everything like anyone could more probably anticipated in the 90s with X-Men. Like, y'all took a risk, and y'all brought it to life. Like,
credit to Margaret Lesh, who's marching orders to those of us working on the show. Okay, it's a Saturday morning kids show, but you do not write down to your audience. You write up. You treat this like a 1 hour live action drama. Whoa, Betty, our dogs are coming in here. And having worked a lot in children's animation up until that point, it's that, pardon us, you never get that kind of freedom or latitude, to do those kind of things. And then telling the stories. X-Men, they got they got mutations, and some can fly, they've got big skill sets, but each one of them has got something inside him or her that is their deepest sadness. And like with Rogue, it's that she can't touch somebody.
right.
And if Wolverine, he's lived so long, he's outlived everybody he ever cared about. If they swapped powers, he wouldn't care if he ever touched anybody again. He'd go run in the woods and be happy as a hermit. And if she with him, she would pull her claws if she needed to, but she'd be able to touch someone. So the very thing that sort of makes them special as X-Men is also the thing that is, sort of the deepest heartache. And that's where, and you're the one kindly enough to mention it, it's not that they're blowing stuff up, it's that it's the human moments, the profoundly human moments that happen in a world where some people can fly and some people can punch real hard, but it's what is the human character story? And you laid that out with Mark right from the start.
How did you incorporate themes of prejudice, acceptance, and social justice in the show?
Well, it was kind of baked in to the basic idea. We leaned on it a little bit when we looked at the books, but if you to transport yourself back, do a time travel moment to 1992 and look at the books from the 60s and the 70s and the 80s up until 92, and when I looked at 4 or 5 of the books, and I said, well, okay, part of the appeal of the X-Men is like so many other superhero comic books, all the spectacle and who's fighting who and who's stronger than who, and that was just kind of okay. That's like almost any other superhero comic. But the thing that makes the thing about X-Men different is the way that people react to them quite naturally.
Society as a whole.
Yeah, the general public looks at them, and even though we all know that they're a force for good, the general public is freaked out. These mutants, are they smarter than us? They're obviously stronger than us. So we wanted to show the thing that was dramatic to us was these heroes that are super powerful thrown into the middle of this world that fears them and dislikes them for being different, because that was it's in the books, but it was one of the two main things about which we thought that's where all the good stories are. Who fights who beats who, we don't care day in and day out. That's not a big deal. It is, I mean, it is when you're watching a wrestling match, which we all enjoy. But the thing that makes X-Men different from all the other stories is this feeling of them being the other, this minority that is misunderstood and feared and oppressed or acted against simply because they were born different. And that it's right there in the books. Mm-hmm. And that's what Mark and I and others, as we developed this world, we grabbed on hold of that, not because we're necessarily more virtuous or want to scream, civil rights to the world, but because that's where the human stories, that's where the drama and the humanity was these people having to look at themselves in the face and say, they don't, I know they don't appreciate me. I'm going to try to work to make it better, but this is what I've been dealt. And that's just that, it tears us up looking at it.
And if you go back and watch the first 3 episodes, the opening shot of it, the very first shot in X-Men, the animated series, is Sabretooth throwing some police cars around.
Right.
And then you pull back and you realize this is a news broadcast, and it's terrifying. And you think, oh my God, these mutants, good Lord, that's a mutant. And look what that mutant is doing. So you set up immediately what the problems could be. And then you don't even introduce Magneto until episode 3.
To the main, the main villain or main adversary for the group. Yeah, keep him, because I wanted the tension and the conflict and the friction to be between standard, normal, regular, unmutated human beings and this new group, this new community of mutants. Mm-hmm. And I wanted that to be where the tension was and where people looking. Once you got that set up, that's the world we're living in, then you could introduce then you could introduce mutant adversaries and let the X-Men fight against them. But I didn't want it to just be good mutants against bad mutants and have the rest of the humanity not really participate. I wanted them to be a presence and them to be a problem mm-hmm. for our main characters.
Yeah, it's like and it makes you think like the X-Men, they probably would give anything just to be human, like, because they know they can't live like human, but if they got the chance to like be human, I'm sure they probably would.
Yeah,
I think so.
I think so. And that's a tough thing to tell people. Say that wouldn't your life be easier if you weren't different?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
if you weren't who you are, which is like
right. And how do I say this? How did y'all feel when y'all heard the news that they want a continuation of X-Men 97 from 92?
That was great.
We had been show went off in 1997, and we have been fortunate. We worked on a bunch of other shows since, and we keep going, but it was in 2015 when X-Men was going to be coming up on some sort of X-Men the animated series was going to be coming up on some anniversary. Mm-hmm. Marvel had fallen apart. The rights were in all different places. There was no studio that held the complete rights together for the X-Men animated series. And unlike, say, Batman with Warner Brothers or Star Trek with Paramount.
Yeah.
And we happened to have all the original scripts and storyboards in boxes above our garage. And I poked you and I said, look, if no one makes the effort to tell the story of X-Men behind the scenes or how it happened, it's not going to get told because there was no company that was interested in doing that.
So we wrote a book and interviewed all the writers and artists and
X-Men previously on X-Men
and voice talent and executives, everybody that made it possible.
So Eric wrote what is the definitive oral history of the show,
and it was without Marvel's participation. Yeah. At that point, they didn't care, about the animated show. It was, so we did that, and that got us going to cons a lot.
We had
meeting all the fans and realizing there were tens of millions of people out there that were still watching the show wherever they could catch it. They were watching the DVDs, or they had it on a local channel Monday through Friday or whatever. And that even though this was 20 years later, it really hadn't gone out of fashion. It hadn't died. There are people compared, we've written on 40 or 50 shows. Most of them, they did their play and then they're pretty much forgotten, or they say, oh, they're okay. People remember them fondly, but what the heck? But this, there seemed to be, we'd go to cons and half the people be dressed as characters from our show. 20 years later, okay, well, something's going on here.
So then Eric gets an email.
I got an email after this book's been out about a year, and we've been to a bunch of cons.
From the vice president in charge of global licensing for Marvel.
And I thought, they're going to get mad at us for writing the book without their permission. And well, that wasn't the case. They said, no, we love the book, but we just got all the rights back from, Disney bought Marvel and bought Fox. All that stuff's back together now, and now we can do a book about the show.
We want to do a coffee table art book. We would love you guys to write it. We're going to do it anyway, but are you interested? So we jumped on that project. And then we started hearing, and we have learned since that because we had all the original artwork in various places, and Larry Houston had stuff, and there were so many talented people, not so many, but plenty of talented people who hung on to stuff that we were able to locate. We have reason to believe now that this book is being used on X-Men 97.
It's kind of the template as the basis, because they did this amazing thing of making something look new and fresh, but so close to what we did that it can feel like a continuation for the fans
in a good way.
Yeah, because we just thought this is going to be hard for them to get this right. And so because every con we went to, people would ask that question: "Oh, are they going to do another show? Are they going to do more episodes?" I said we don't know. Yeah. It's been over 20 years, and we got no control over that. We'd love to see one, but then we got a phone call when we found out okay, they're doing one. They're already a year into working on it. They're using our book as a reference point. And they want to hire us and Larry in as consulting producers, which means that the 30-year-olds are doing all the work. The 130-year-olds are all writing and drawing and doing all this stuff. People that grew up on the show. Yeah. And we're there, as they asked, to be their first audience. So they'll show us a rough animatic of an episode that they do, and we'll hear the voices and we'll see some of the action, or we'll read the scripts and we'll say, okay, well, that's great, but why don't you add something here with Beast? Why don't you add something here with Jubilee? Or if we see something that looks like a red flag, that looks wrong. So they had us on, like with Larry, as specialists in this kind of storytelling, to just add our voice to their creative process. And that was unusual out here. Yeah. Hollywood's a very strange place, and a very unforgiving place. And the people that are doing the new version of a show almost never want anything to do with somebody that did something similar before.
Right.
They want it to be their own, and they don't want to bother with somebody getting in their way and telling them they're doing it wrong. So the fact that they opened up their doors to us and said, please come and join us and be consultants on this, has just been a real gift to us. Yeah. And we've been doing it now for about 3.5 years. Mm-hmm. And there's very little we can talk about seasons 2 and season 3. But we can say there's season 2 and season 3 because that's public knowledge.
It's been announced. It's going to happen.
Season 2 is going to start sometime next year. That's public knowledge. We don't know what day exactly.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Sooner the better. Marvel's got so many things. They've had to kind of stretch this out.
Yeah, and that's fine.
But they are so deep into this, and they so love it, and they're so wanting to do it right that they're already heavily into season 3 with the stories. Yeah. So y'all,
which means we need to keep our mouth shut.
Have faith that this is going to be around for years, and for all we know, it's going to be season 8 by the time you have grandchildren.
Right. Oh man, that's fantastic. I know y'all couldn't get much, but that was plenty. But yeah, like, what do you want to tell the fans about the X-Men series before we have to get off?
It was everyone working on the show back in the original series. We were kids in the candy store. We were given the chance to, come up with the toughest stories, write the most honest kind of dialogue with characters who happened to, be mutants who could fly around and do stuff. It was it was wonderful. It was so exciting,
was-
and everybody was everyone put out their best work. There was
Yeah.
no slacking, no slouching.
It was a real gift.
Yeah.
The creative people out here, we ask any of the writers that worked for us, the artists that worked for us, they'll tell you, said 8 out of 10 jobs they get and they do because, well, got to pay the rent. And I got, this is my profession. I'm here and it's okay. And then you get these exciting moments where you really get to stretch and just show everything you can possibly do. And it's like you're suddenly, my God, you're in the Super Bowl. You've been playing football since you're 5 years old, and now you wake up and this is as good as it gets.
Yeah.
And we all felt that way when we were working on the show, and it showed. Even if it had been canceled after the first season, we would have walked away and said, we left it all on the field. That was the best we could do.
And we will acknowledge, look, we didn't have, it was a fraction of the budget of Batman. Batman is the best looking show you're going to see on TV. And it's Batman in the 90s. Our show was shipped out and sent to various locations overseas to be physically animated. And it's ragtag to a certain extent. And but even then, on the storyboards and the voice acting and, in the scripts, everybody was doing their darndest to make the best show they could. And the fact that for you and me, literally 30 years later, we find out that there's this fan base. It's so rewarding. It is so magical.
Yeah, we everywhere we go in the world,
not that we go everywhere in the world,
but we were visiting Singapore for a job, and we're there getting in the TSA line. And the Malay and wearing an Xmen hat.
Previous an Xmen hat.
And all the Malaysian TSA agents rushed up around us and wanted to take pictures because they'd all grown up watching X-Men the animated series.
And I said, X-Men the animated series? Oh yeah, no, that's how I learned
when
English.
We're doing the book, same kind of thing. We go online and we say, well, who wants to tell us about growing up with the X-Men? And we would get hundreds, we get thousands of testimonials saying, well, I live in New Zealand, or I live in Brazil, or I live in Spain, in Saudi Arabia, and I learned English listening to them, or I became a French scholar because of Gambit, or I became a philosophy major because of Beast,
or a neurologist. We met someone because of Beast. It's like what?
And or my brother's named Logan, and my little brother's named Xavier, because this thing was just a worldwide. We had no sense of that when we're writing it. We're just, as she said, she's at our dining room table cranking this stuff out as fast as we can. And then you start meeting people at cons and start talking to people online, and you get a sense that it touched the world. Yeah. And that's the most wonderful thing.
Oh my God.
A creative person can have. That is the top.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we do the thing on Geeking Out Loud where we talk about, like, we do these little fun questions the fan wants to ask. They want to know, who do y'all think will win in a battle between the X-Men versus Thanos?
Oh. Okay. All right. We have to set up some caveats. When you say X-Men, do we include Apocalypse? We can.
Yeah.
That's tough.
Or, the thing that always gets me, look, everyone loves Wolverine because he gets the claws and does the job. But that is not how you win a war. You win a war with your aerial, and that's you get Storm up there, and she sends down ice, and she sends down lightning, and she takes everybody out that way. But I don't know how that. But if you can do that with Thanos, maybe catch him off guard long enough to surprise him. Mm-hmm. Then you can send in the rest of the team to do the groundwork. I think
those are always hard things, because when we're trying to, we know that fans really care about the rules.
Yes.
And about
what are the rules?
About if you cause this problem, if you're going to have a big fight, you can't just have the Hulk fighting Jubilee. You need some sort of balance. Mm-hmm. You need to understand what people's weaknesses are. It's like one of the first episodes we did was when we introduced Juggernaut. And I'm thinking, look, I haven't thought this through very hard, but how do you get to Juggernaut? And how can, these people are going to fight like crazy and they're heroes, but he's pretty indestructible. And so we had to find one little weakness for him and make sure that it took 5 or 6 X-Men working together at the same time to get to that one little weakness and get him away. Because I hate it when writers and storytellers don't care about the rules and say, oh, I don't, let him fight for a little while and then the bad guy's beaten, and I don't. Yeah. So the Thanos question is, I mean, that's hard.
It's a fun one.
It's fun, and it's a little bit difficult. He's kind of hard to get to. I know comic book writers have found ways to slow him down. But,
yeah, like the Phoenix Force. I bet with Jean Grey, she acted the Phoenix Force.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, there you go. Yeah,
we are. It's funny. People ask, who's the most powerful X-Men, and obviously, Rogue and Storm fly, and she's super strong, and a lot of people come back to Jean Grey just because of what she can do with her mind, and that what she was able to contain the Phoenix Force and partner with it, and that there you go. Maybe she is, whatever. Yeah. People talk about that stuff all night, into the morning. Who's going to be stronger?
Yep.
But and also they want to know 2 more things. They said, what would you like to see adapted in like a storyline or a villain in like the MCU, for example, or any of the Marvel shows?
Well, we're hearing all kinds of things about with the new Thunderbolts movie that's just come out that is now Thunderbolts, the New Avengers.
Right.
We understand that the folks at Marvel Disney are big fans of the different iterations of the X-Men, and just the fact that they may be considering, I don't mean rebooting, but
they're working very hard to prepare for the next Series X-Men movies. They've been the last couple of years. You've seen the hints of it, and like Xavier and being hinted at the little corner of a movie, and other people. They are working on this, and
we don't know anything, but I'm telling you,
we don't know. We do not know any of the secrets, but any fan can tell you that they're building to this and they're smart about it. And a couple of years from now, whenever the first new X-Men movie comes out, they will have thought through all the possibilities in the Marvel universe about how they're going to approach it and which of the X-Men they're going to focus on, because they have some options. I mean, the first X-Men movies were basically used the same team that we set up.
There you go. The team he picked out with other folks for the original X-Men animated series.
But that doesn't mean that there aren't 2 or 3 others. You could have Colossus be a lead character. You could have other people be Iceman, whatever. You could have other people be in the middle of it to make the core. So I don't envy them figuring out of the thousands of permutations and combinations you could do for the new Series X. But that they've got staffs of creative people working on it, and I think they're going to do a wonderful job. I just don't know what's going to be.
Right. I hope they do Apocalypse right. Like, I hope they do another Apocalypse, but I hope they do it right this time. Like, I know, like you said, like, he's 5 foot, like, what, 10?
Yeah. It's just, and he's walking around with them and talking and chatting. He needs to. He needs
a stature. He needs to towering over you, looking down at you, belittling you, basically.
And let me say, as a female, I really want them to work harder at getting the female teammates right, because I'm not convinced they have been fully surfaced.
Yeah, that was one of the things when we first saw the first movies, which are beautiful.
Oh my God.
And some of the casting is just amazing. Like Charles Xavier and Wolverine and Magneto and all these choices that they made that were just so brilliant. And they played them out, and they made people love them almost as much as they loved them in our show, we'll say, laugh about it. But the first couple 3, I don't know that they quit. They did much with Storm and Rogue. I mean, they were central, tough focuses of our stories.
Yeah,
right.
Big warrior women that were just kicking ass and taking names, and they kind of got lost a little in the first few X-Men movies. And who knows why? Everybody's got their different focuses on the group.
Right.
But we're hoping to see them do a little bit more with them. Like for instance, in the first season of 97 of that everybody X-Men 97, everybody likes those 10 episodes. They really started focusing on Storm more.
Yes.
And she really kind of come to the and
Jubilee is
Jubilee's getting a little more action than we gave her, that the movies gave her. So each creative person, when they're given this assignment, has people they like better. I heard that the showrunner on the first season of 97 loves Cyclops. So you could sense the first 3 or 4 episodes, he's really Cyclops friendly. He's really getting into his head and his heart in ways that, maybe we spent more time with Wolverine and Gambit than that. So it becomes a personal thing for the person running the show.
Sure. Yeah, and the geeks and fans are grateful that y'all came on our show. So.
Oh, hey, I don't know if this is going to be video or audio, but can I share an Easter egg with you that I don't know?
Of course, okay. It'll be both, by the way, but yes, of course.
Okay, so here we go. This is the book X-Men: The Art and Making of the Animated Series. In the title, in the opening pages here, I'll just woo. These are the storyboards for the the opening title sequence. And we were looking at this when we're putting the book together. And down here, we go to Beast. And then we jump over to Beast. And then we go, and there's Gambit.
And it opens up
with his cards. Now look at the cards. Can you see?
Yeah.
Look at the pip for the Ace of Spades.
It's upside down.
It's upside down.
There's an upside down spade on the card.
We never caught that. We're putting the book together. We call Larry Houston, and he says, "Oh, I think that might have been an overseas error." He checks his original storyboard. He goes, "I drew it upside down." So it made it past everybody. If you watch the opening title sequence,
if you pause
just right,
you pause on the cards he's about to throw, you'll see an upside down spade on the ace.
Which we now laugh at that.
And it's not a conspiracy. It doesn't mean anything. It just means that Larry was tired that day. And
he was working real hard.
And he screwed up.
But it's also one of those, that kind of feels like something Gambit might do. Just have some funky cards.
Fire with it, yeah.
Yeah. So that's one of my favorite accidental Easter eggs. So.
And out of all things, in my curiosity, what is y'all's favorite X-Men storyline or comic?
Well, okay, I gotta say for me, the original. Two Days of Future Past, the original, which is like, oh my God, but also God Loves, Man Kills. That is woof. That is rough, and I respect it.
Yeah, and I really think, we chuckle about it because everybody knows the name, but I think Len Wein and Chris Claremont.
Len Wein.
These two writers, everybody knows Chris's name more, but those two folks, when they redid X-Men in 1975, when it came back from being out of print for 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if the people know, it ran from 1963 to 1970 when like Stan Lee and Jack Kirby started it and other people took it over. So it ran for about 7 years and it did poorly enough. And it was a little different. They were younger. They were in their blue suits. They were a bunch of teenagers. It was basically 4 or 5 guys and Jean Grey.
Yeah. And
it wasn't quite at all the show that we're all used to now. So when it came back in 1975, Len and Chris were two of the strongest people there. Len was put in charge of recreating the X-Men and was told, it wasn't selling very well in America, but it's doing well overseas. Come up with some international characters. So he came up with, Russian Colossus, German Nightcrawler, African Storm. He came up with this whole
Canadian
Wolverine. He came up with this whole new international UN of characters who are older, tougher, more world weary. Mm-hmm. I like to think it's because it's after the Vietnam War. It's like the original X-Men in 1963 was a more innocent age, and they're a bunch of teenagers and having fun, and they're wisecracking. You come back in 1975, and the world's gotten tougher and darker and older. And so that's the way they drew these characters. And Len and Chris and a couple other people started out, did the first 4 or 5 issues of that. And then Len was taken off to do other stuff. And then Chris continued for like 19 years. But those two guys are such serious writers, are such good writers that they, and I figured this out coming to X-Men fresh when I was given this job. I had to learn it real fast. And, the stuff done in the 60s, while it still has its fans and some beautiful artwork, the stories were kind of simple and not that special. And I don't think that memorable. But then you hit these guys, these writers, made it into this timeless storytelling that we've come to know and love. So that's where I go back to almost anything Chris wrote.
Right. Yeah. Mine's always gonna be Age of Apocalypse and Dark Phoenix, because the Dark Phoenix, it's so memorable because they're fighting their own X-Men member basically, and it's hard, especially for Cyclops.
Oh yeah, it's tough.
Yeah.
And it was a decision we made when we were adapting Phoenix and Dark Phoenix. So that was 9.5 hours of our storytelling. It was 9 of our episodes.
Mm-hmm.
And in looking at the books, that Chris was this ability to have 4 or 5 different plots going all at once, subplots of this one, and go touching base with this. And it would take him 7 or 8 episodes to resolve one of them. So we're looking at it, okay, this is going to get too confusing on TV. When we simplified, we focused it more on Cyclops, to have it be more from his point of view than the books were, because it was all happening to Jean.
Yeah.
And who does it mean most to?
For him. Yeah.
It means most, if Jean's going through this crisis and this spectacular, dangerous adventure where we very well could lose her, who is this going to be the most emotional for? And it's going to be Cyclops. So we specifically, when we're trying to adapt it for TV, we simplified it, slimmed it down a little, and made it more Cyclops from his point of view. Yeah.
Man, I can't tell you how grateful I am for y'all being on here and telling your stories and the history of the X-Men anime series. So for me and all the geeky nerdy fans, thank you.
You're very welcome, Doctor.
Thank you, Dr. Geekly. I'm glad we were able to work this out and connect.
Of course. And maybe one day again y'all can hop back on and we can talk more. But
yeah. Oh, and if folks want to follow us, you found us and we found you. I am online social media wise a lot. X-Men TAS. That's for X-Men the Animated Series.
That's on X.
On Twitter X, on Instagram, on Blue Sky. So please, we can't always return every comment but I try, and I try and just keep it fun and happy for X-Men fans.
And my question as a fan, how much would it cost to get one of y'all's signatures on one of your books?
We'll talk offline, but we can make that happen. Yeah. Okay. Oh, and we have an email address, xmentas92 at Gmail. If folks want to know, they were happy to reach out to us there and we can talk about it. Okay.
All right. And it's all geeky nerdy fans, just make sure to subscribe, share, and look out for the next episode. All right. See y'all guys later. See.